Hello and welcome to another episode of Battle Ready.
Ready.
Where today we have one question.
One question only.
Is balance even that important?
Yes.
All right. So one of the things that I think people get weird, I don't know weird about, but are worried about when it comes to indexes, is are the forces going to be balanced against each other? There's sort of temporary rules, how much thought is put into that balance. And apparently, we don't play 40K.
No, we do not.
But if you look on the interwebs, there's a lot of complaints about the balance of the 40K indexes for 10th edition. So, before we worry about whether or not they're going to be balanced, the question is balance even good? Is that something that we should pursue as a goal?
Yes.
All right, Drake, let's hear it.
We should have balance, because if we do not have balance, Seraphon, almighty destroying machines. Soul Blight, sad little weaklings. And so everyone plays Seraphon, and we just have Seraphon versus Seraphon forever.
I see. So let me give you a counterpoint, because I think the answer is maybe. That's the answer. So I think that there's definitely a need for sort of a baseline level of balance. You're right. If you have some people that are way underpowered and not fun to play because they just get stomped every time, or way overpowered and so not fun to play against because you'll just get stomped every time, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's totally a problem. But I sort of think that balance in a game as asymmetrical as Warhammer, which I love. I love the asymmetry. I love that everything feels different. But when there's that much asymmetry, I think balance is really illusory. I think it's that when we discuss balance, we're really talking about something that's not
existent.
Well, it's pretty ephemeral, right? We all sort of know what we want, but to actually put it into practice, to make the rules and put the words on the paper, to actually give you a balanced experience,
it's hard.
It's certainly hard, and I think
with something like Warhammer, where people will find the little loopholes, it's next to impossible.
Well, I think it's practically impossible just because of the dice in the game, right? I mean, I guess you could try playing games with only average dice rolls. So it's like, oh yes, so instead of rolling, I just know that my 6-up ward will cancel 1 out of 6 hits, right? We just played that. We take the randomness out. But with so much randomness in it, and the ability to spike or not spike in any individual game,
it makes it impossible.
That means you have to play many games against every single faction combination to really get to balance. I just don't think that's possible, especially with the rate that they change the rules when new battle tomes and things like that come out, right?
And what you would have to be careful of is Stormcast versus Nighthaunt. Well, Nighthaunt has a bajillion ways to even make different armies.
Sure. Yes, so the sub-factions have a big impact, which is appropriate.
And just the models themselves.
Yep. So,
and artifacts and command trees. There's just a bajillion things.
So I think that most people who play this game, now there's some people, maybe tournament diehards that are like all about the balance of the game. But I think for the majority of people, the game isn't about that. Balance is not what brings them to this game. If you want a perfectly balanced game, there are, or at least close to perfectly balanced, there are many games out there that have good symmetry or even are asymmetrical, but provide a really balanced, competitive play experience. I think Magic the Gathering is like that. You and your buddy can have totally different decks with totally different cards, and yet have a pretty good game.
I will assume that is something you can do.
Yeah, it is. So, but I think with Warhammer, I don't think most people are playing for the balance. Once you get above a baseline, I completely agree. There needs to be some level of parity between the factions. But once you get to that sort of generalized parity, I think what most people are looking for is good time, big moments to cheer or rue if it happens to you, if your Carnosaur dies.
With one glaive wraith!
I think they're looking for those big, exciting moments, and they're looking for a story, for a narrative to be on the table.
When Linder butchered the 2 flying guards and king girls.
See, look at all these things you're remembering because they're cool moments that happened during the game.
And I needed to win.
But not because it was balanced. It was because it all came down to one roll. It all came down to this maneuver. It's not because, oh yeah, it's a good thing that 5-up ward was changed to a 6-up. Right? It's like that's not where the game comes from. So I think that balance, after you get to a certain level, let's have that certain level. I'm not saying no balance is good. But after you get to a certain level, I really feel like
then you need to have some
balance isn't that important. I just don't feel like it's important.
That's fair.
But if we're gonna talk about balance, you know what I think is more important than external balance? External balance is?
Internal balance.
No, those are two different things. What's external balance?
Balance outside of a faction.
Yeah, so that's Seraphon's external balance is how well do they do against Soulblight? How well do they do against Ironjaws? How well do they do against
Nagash?
I guess that's Soulblight again. But all the other factions, that's external. Internal balance is if you look at all the units a faction has.
And what ways can they unfairly combo?
No, I mean, there's a little bit of that. But internal balance really is more about if you look at all those units, are there some that are just frankly straight up better? Mm-hmm. And so you would these guys are better in every way. They've got a better save. They move faster. They've got a better ability.
Better bravery
than these guys. So you would always take these guys over these guys, right?
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then that's unbalanced, right? Mm-hmm. One is clearly better than the other. So in order to, now that doesn't mean you can't have bad units. You could totally have bad units,
yes,
as long as you point them really low. Mm-hmm. Because then their role, they're not supposed to be heavy hitters.
Yeah, they're supposed to be the deck sitters.
They're supposed to, sit on an objective in the back. Or screen. Or, they have other roles that they can fulfill. So I'm not saying that every unit needs to be a total hitter, a total hammer, a total anvil, right? Lots of things. But every unit should have a role that they fulfill. Mm-hmm. Even if that role is be a body for real cheap in points. Right?
Try and slow down Lord Executioner and hopefully not fail.
Right. So I think that's actually way more important than external balance. Mm-hmm. Because I think when it comes to internal balance, I think you want, especially if you've got a lot of models, right? You've been collecting Stormcast. They have a lot of models.
They do.
Right? You've been collecting Gloomspite. Quite a few models. Right? If you've been collecting one, this might not be as important if you're on, Fire Slayers or Ideneth that don't have Caradron, that don't have quite as large a range. But if you have a larger range...
Ironjaws has none.
Yeah, especially until recently, right? They used to be just a few.
8 units total?
Yeah, something like that. But it should really be, if you've been collecting a large army, your book should encourage you to play all the units. Mm-hmm. All the units should be playable.
All the lads.
Right? Now, you want to, sometimes you have auto-includes. They're just so good, you put them in every list. That's also not, that's a little too overpowered, right? We want to drop that down. But I think you want to have a system where every unit
has a purpose.
There's a reason to take it. Maybe the list you're building, you don't need that. You don't need a deck sitter. Mm-hmm. Or you're building an ultra hammer list, so you're just not going to bring the anvils, right? So different lists are going to vary for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But every unit, there should be a list. You should consider and say, oh, do I want a unit that does this? Oh, they're super small and weak, but they can teleport. So maybe I can jump them on a backline objective.
We know that one.
They're super small and weak, but they're really cheap. So now I can use them as a screen for my better stuff. Oh, whatever it is. So every unit, I think that is actually where more of the focus. I think a lot of the meta watch stuff, they're looking at which factions are winning against other factions. That's important. Get that baseline. But I really think internal balance should be the focus for, I think, for the casual player. Yeah. Right? The casual player is playing that way. They're not trying to find all the little knobs, efficiencies and try to find the uber combos that can sometimes play out at tournaments. All right, let me ask you this. So, talked about balance, but if you're going to balance the game, which at least at some level they should, is tournament data the best way to do that?
It depends on if you want to make the models even in terms of this unit can shoot and then shoot again and then also shoot again if it killed something. Mm-hmm. For that, because sometimes tournament players will find those hidden combos and exploit them horrifically.
Well, true. I'm not saying that you should never use tournament data.
Yeah, I'm saying
for sure. I think the question is, should that be the primary source of data?
I think what the primary source of data should be playtesters, but tournament could be a very likely secondary source.
Yeah. For me, I feel like tournaments are, I should say tournament data are almost a necessary evil. Like, I think if you're looking at the people who are trying to play the game at a high level, then you're going to get, because of the organized situations, you're going to get good data and you're going to see how certain things perform. And you're going to see if there's, broken stuff that's problematic that you can fix, right? All of that is good. But it tells you a lot less about the experience that casual players, the basement warriors, the garage battlers, right? How is the experience for them? Because sometimes you've got your models and you're just having a fun time. You're not doing anything crazy, no net lists, no meta stuff. And then because something crazy is going on in the meta, a bunch of your units get point increases, and now
you're sad.
And now you lose stuff, and you're like, I wasn't playing the overpowered thing. So but I think it's a necessary evil, because those people
will find.
Well, the people who play at home and in the garage and stuff, one, they're less concerned about balance. So losing a unit or gaining a unit here or there is not going to be that big of a deal. And two, I don't know that there's any way realistically to report those concerns.
Yeah.
Because I guess you could write Games Workshop and say, the Soul Blight is doing too much to me, or the Daughters of Cain are too strong. But those, I think a lot of those are just going to sound like complaints. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of usefulness that comes out of that can be used for tuning things. So while I think it would be great if the more casual player, the one who just, you play at home, you go to your local shop, you have some buddies, you have a game group that you play with, right? Those people, I think, would be, if you want the game as a whole to be successful, I think that's really the target. Problem is, I just don't know how you get the data from that. The next best thing, I think, are tournaments, because that's where you have a lot of people together and you can really measure. I do think, when it comes to tournaments too, I think a lot of people pay real close attention to the winning tables, the winning lists. Who went 5-0? Who went 4-1? What were they bringing? And to the extent that they're bringing nonsense combo broken things, you want to know that, right? You're like, oh, shoot, that's way broken. We got to fix that.
40 Ardboys with spears and an Ardboy big boss.
But almost by its nature, if you're looking at the top tables, you're looking at the Warhammer. You look at the Warhammer 1%ers, right? You're looking at people who are not representative of the general Warhammer player. You're looking at people who are
most
a very
version.
class. Yeah, very separate class. And so when you make changes to appease that class, that may or may not
affect the greater majority.
Help the game for the rest of the people. So, but I also feel like, that's my theory. But you also look at the balance of 3.0. What's the balance of 3.0 like right now?
I don't really know.
Well, I think it's pretty well. When you are games, when we play,
they seem kind of balanced.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. I think it's pretty good. I think the balance is pretty good. And it seems like they're using a lot of tournament data. So maybe I'm totally wrong, right? Maybe my concern is totally wrong, and they're getting enough data out there to make the game as a whole better. But I do think that since there are more people playing the game outside of tournaments, local shops, in their homes, whatever, the more that you could target that audience, probably the better as a whole.
Yes.
Although still, broken stuff, and so you're going to find things at tournaments that you wouldn't find elsewhere that do need fixing. So yes. I think that would be a necessary part. I just don't know that it should be the primary if we had other ways to get data. Since we don't, I think by default it is.
Yeah. I feel like one way we could maybe get data from the home people is by doing the thing they did when they kickstarted 10th edition, where they had people report the ending of their games to see if the planet got eaten or was saved.
Yeah, I think something like, so first of all, I think there's going to be a similar situation for AOS when it comes out. But something like that, some kind of self-reporting forum or something like that could be helpful. But, the kind of people that are just playing in the shops and in their homes and with their pals, I don't know how many of them are going to go home and like fill out a form about their game, right? I mean, I will because I'm a nerd. But I don't know how many people are going to do that. And then when you do that, you're only getting information from those people that are willing to do that, whereas the people that maybe are newer to the game or whatever aren't doing that. So then you're not addressing their concerns. I don't know. I guess I don't know. I guess that's what it comes down to. If there were a perfect method, what would you? Let me ask. Put it in the comments below. What would you do? How do you think the game would best be balanced? Where should the focus be? And how do you go? What's the best way to go about getting that information? Any final thoughts on balance?
Our thoughts are balanced.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Battle Ready.
Ready for balance.
Thanks so much for watching.